Might have hit the wrong button there. We got Andrew here in Austin.
Hi. Did you read Matthew 5:27 and 28?
Sure, I've read the whole Bible several times.
Okay. Do you know what it says there?
Is that the passage about adultery, where it's not doesn't just have to be physical adultery? If you look at another woman, another man's wife with lust, you've committed adultery in your heart. Exactly.
It says, "Whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart."
Sure.
How do you not think that that's a good thing for people to have limits?
You think that's a good thing?
It's called mind control. You're trying to determine what I think and what I don't think. That's one of the stupidest things I could imagine. How can you control or even pretend to control what somebody thinks? And you don't think Jesus looked on a woman without lust? Or any of his disciples?
That's what Jesus said. That is Jesus, what Jesus said right there.
Well, first of all, we'll set aside how you think you know that this is what Jesus said. Second aside, we'll set aside whether or not it matters whether Jesus said it. I don't care who said it. If it's wrong, it's wrong. And so if somebody says, now I will say, if a man looks on a woman lustfully, he's committed adultery in his heart, is absolutely wrong. Because first of all, he's not necessarily married, and adultery is specifically a lustful or sexual action that extends beyond the bounds of marriage. So as a single person, looking on a woman lustfully isn't adultery. And by the way, I put it to you that almost nobody on the planet outside of arranged marriages would have ever gotten married or had sex if they hadn't looked at someone of the opposite sex lustfully. And finally, why is it a man looking at a woman lustfully? Why isn't it a woman looking at a man lustfully, or a man looking at a man, or a woman looking at a woman? This is a misogynist. Hang on.
If you see a beautiful woman, do you just go rape her right away?
Andrew, I'm going to let you, just let me finish the thought. It's a misogynistic bit of language that is patently absurd. It denies something that is trivial about human nature and the way things actually work, and tries to compound it as sin. Okay? I could care less if somebody wants to call it sin. Now, go ahead.
Well, don't you think it's important to have limits on your sexual desires? Otherwise, everyone would just be raping everyone.
Really? You think people would just run around raping people?
Well, do you just rape someone?
I haven't raped anybody in the last 50-some years.
Yeah, I've never raped anybody, nor have I had the inclination to.
I've been an atheist for 20 years, so it's just amazing.
So you know that's you do.
How do you get from it's probably a good thing if people don't run around raping each other to therefore this statement about lustful thoughts is necessarily morally correct? Please make the connection between those two. How do you get from we should have some limits to what we can do to we need to have thought crime legislation? How do you get there?
What limits do atheists have?
Well, what culture? Tell me one culture that doesn't have limits. And every culture on the face of the earth has limits, and they're not Christian cultures. Chinese culture has got limits. Japanese, the most secular country in the world is Japan. They have the lowest rape rate. Denmark. Sweden, very unreligious places, and they don't have any rape problem. We have much more rape in the United States
than they
ever do in Denmark or Sweden.
Religion doesn't seem to be any kind of deterrent to rape. Are you implying that all rapists are non-Christians or non-religious? What about the priests who are raping little boys and little girls?
Where do you get your limits from?
I get my limits from a rational consideration of the consequences of my actions. That's how I determine what's moral. I get it from a foundation that says my actions have an effect on those people around me and theirs have an effect on me. And that if we're going to live cooperatively and share space, we have to recognize that impact. And my freedom to swing my arm ends at their nose. And that I have no right to impose my will over somebody else's will in that type of scenario. That's where I get them from. It's from an understanding.
What's the punishment if you do that then? You're just going to die.
Andrew, I get them from an understanding of reality, not an assertion of authority. Now, what was the question?
Well, if you just do all that, let's just say you go out with a gun and you just rape a bunch of people, then you just shoot yourself, what's going to be the punishment for you?
If I go out and rape a bunch of people and shoot myself, what's going to be the punishment for me? I'll be dead?
Yeah.
I'll be dead.
And why?
It's not going to hurt. The bullet's going to go through your head in about a second. There isn't going to be any pain.
That's correct. I'll be dead. Okay, so let's flip the script here. Let's say somebody goes around and rapes and murders somebody, and then After they're done, they get saved. What's the punishment for them?
Oh, the punishment is hell.
No, they got saved.
They got saved.
Are you saying that a rapist can't be saved? See, this is the problem. This is the problem with Christian religion. It establishes unrealistic and irrational and immoral criteria by which to live. And then it creates a loophole so that you don't ever have to be responsible for those actions. No, Andrew, shut up till I'm done. Christianity is not a moral system. It is an immoral system because it specifically says that there aren't necessarily consequences that you're going to have to pay because of a loophole. And what is the loophole? It has nothing to do with how good you are or how morally you act or anything else. It has to do with whether or not you're willing to be a sycophant to an idea. And if you are, then there is now an exception for which you no longer have to suffer a penalty for this. So the idea that secular morality offers no guarantee that people will ever pay for their crimes and their atrocities is not an argument against secular morality, because that is a tenet of Christianity. It is the foundation. The idea that the Christian God is just is directly contradicted by the idea that the Christian God is merciful. Perfect justice and any mercy are necessarily directly in contradiction, because mercy is a suspension of justice. So do not pretend that your religion is moral and just and then try to attack my position, which is based on reality, because somebody might rape people, shoot themselves ahead, and then not get punished. That's asinine.
If religion is such a bad thing, how come you think, I don't know how many atheists are there in the United States? How come everyone isn't just an atheist then?
Because not everybody is aware of how bad and untrue religion is, which is one of the reasons why we're doing
this. You think you're some kind of genius or something?
Actually, yeah, but why is that relevant?
Everyone else is too dumb to figure it out?
No, it's not a matter of too dumb. You see, I was a Christian for 25 plus years.
Let me ask you a question. Why are you calling in as a Christian? Why didn't you call in as a Muslim, a Buddhist, or a Hindu?
Because my parents raised me as a Christian.
So you didn't have a choice, did you? When did you choose to be a Christian?
Well, it's just a tradition. Your parents teach you whatever religion they do. So if you were born over
so if you were
in
born a Muslim,
you'd be a Muslim.
Yeah.
So if you were born a Muslim.
So it has nothing to do with truth then. It's just the way you were raised. See, because on this show we actually care about whether or not things are true. And my genius status is completely irrelevant because I was a Christian for 25 plus years. I did not get smarter when I became an atheist. What happened was I gained more information. I became more knowledgeable about the subjects. And I decided to actually care whether or not my beliefs were true. You don't seem to care whether or not your beliefs are true. You just like them.
Because you were born here.
Well, I think it's good. I think you're going to have more happiness in your life if you have limits to tell you what you can do or...
how is that relevant to the truth of your religion? I've already said...
It's not all true. I know. I was talking to people on the chat here, and they said, well, they're read the Old Testament. There's all this genocide and stuff, and I was just saying, well, you don't have to read the whole thing because you just read, for example, what Jesus said.
Okay.
You don't.
So are you saying? I tell you what, we already talked about this earlier. Not everything that Jesus said is true or good or smart or wise either. So why would you care at all what any of them have to say? You're not concerned about truth. You've already just said you can pick and choose and toss aside the things you don't like. So you're inventing your own version of Christianity. So why not just chuck it aside and go ahead and invent your own secular moral system? You keep talking about how we don't have limits. I have plenty of limits. And we live in a society that has plenty of limits. As Daryl's already pointed out, most societies have limits. You keep going to this slippery slope thing of, well, if there is no, 10 Commandments or Jesus or whatever, then you've got no limits. You'll just run around raping and killing people. Well, that's already demonstrably false. And there have been multiple studies that actually investigate the correlation between the religiosity of a society and its societal health. And there is always a strong negative correlation. The more atheistic the society, the better they score on societal health factors, from everything from teenage pregnancy rates to STDs to happiness to wealth to murder, rape to healthcare. Now, go out and do some actual research that contradicts this, and then you might have a case for your assertion that I think you'll live a better life if you're... No, you won't. There's no evidence to demonstrate this. This is wishful thinking. Just as not only have you gone and said, well, I'll pick and choose what I want, you've done it in a way where you're just trying to support your own wishful thinking. And until you actually come up with evidence, and until you demonstrate that you care about the truth, we don't really need to waste any more time on it. And I guess we won't.